So into today's video, I will be going over why, powerlifting has inherently made my physique better. And, just want to talk about it because I think a lot of people like to put, hypertrophy as, one of the, top goals for everybody who wants to get bigger. Now, in my personal opinion, there is also another thing, which is getting stronger, because strength is a good indicator on how your body is adapting to certain stimuluses. So let's say if I wanted to be a runner from this starting point, I would lose weight and I'd get faster over time. That's because your body adapts to certain stimulus. Now, with strength, it allows you to move more weight. Inherently, making you stronger will allow you to move heavier weights in the hypertrophy, setting. So I tend to find, especially when it comes to chest. So if you haven't been around for a long time, my chest used to be flatter than it already is right now. And, I used to struggle putting on muscle on my chest. That's just because, my chest wasn't really that strong. And also my bench form was very shit. And, only in the recent year have I been able to perfect it. And, that's what the gym's all about. It's about, going back, looking at it and going, yeah, I can do a bit, to change that. And as soon as I started, benching properly, kind of going more towards the strength hypertrophy side of like growing my chest, I've noticed a lot of gains and, noticed a lot of growth. And really, from my own experience, it has been the case where the stronger my muscle is, like my biceps are the strongest they've ever been and the biggest they've ever been. My triceps are the strongest they've ever been and they're the biggest they've ever been. Because I used to be extremely skinny. I used to look like a stick insect, basically. But as I've, got more knowledge and, more time underneath my belt in the gym, I'm able to, apply that to myself and other people because, in my spare time, I like training my friends and people I know. And, it makes me very, happy seeing them get tortured. But, strength does lead to a lot of muscle gains. And hence why I always say to my friends, and I've probably said it once or twice on here, you need to put some strength compounds in your workouts in order to, benefit from them. Like, even to put into a more hypertrophy saying, because everyone has their own opinion on hypertrophy and everything, you could do bench press, you could do incline press. They all technically stimulate the chest in a way. You have your squats, you have certain types of squats, you have deadlifts. And yes, deadlifts grow your, posterior chain, your erector muscles, everything. So please, don't think deadlifts are like this thing that will break you. And, Eddie Hall says, oh, if you are not wanting to compete, don't do them. Why not? Deadlifts are very important when lifting things, The stronger you are in deadlift, the less likely you are to get injured from actually lifting something up in real life, like a box. I do my deadlift form when I'm picking stuff up. Literally, I pick it up like I'm doing a deadlift because it's dead weight. Can't move. But less of my rambling, will be going straight into the workout today. It is week 3 on the, the road to, competition. Although it is week 2 for me. So it's a bit confusing for the average viewer that doesn't know. But inherently, I've got 7-ish weeks, like 8 weeks until my competition. I'm still cutting down. I'm an average of 95 morning weight, which still need to get down to, 93 morning weight, and, get a bit more information on what the competition actually, where do I weigh in, all this kind of stuff. But anyway, we'll get straight into the workout today. So to start off the workout, 200 for 3 on squat, and then 175 for 5 for 2 sets. Squats are going quite well. This was felt pretty good. Felt very loose in my hip flexors, which is a good sign that my physio has actually done something, which my previous physio, when I came to them with my whole leg situation, didn't really do much. But glad to know that at least spending a bit of money to help myself did work. So it's at least something. But squats overall, I've been feeling pretty good. You'll see later on in this week, so week 3, that the post squats are coming on quite well. It's just the odd day that because sometimes I have to work out in the morning and it's not particularly the greatest, so performance may differ. But I'm training at quite a reasonable time of 1, because work doesn't start until 3. But bench press went okay. Did 120 without anything on, just purely because it's not extremely challenging at the moment. But when we get to incline press, I will pull on my wrist straps, just because I am going up in weight on the incline press. I'm trying 105 on the incline press, which is a bit of a push, but I think, as I've said in videos, pushing yourself that way enables for a bit of adaptation. And yes, my arse may leave the bench on the final rep just purely because I don't have a spotter. Therefore, I can't let it fall on me, otherwise I am absolutely screwed. So that's the only reason why my arse comes off the bench on the incline press, is if on the last rep I know for certain I'm not getting this without any assistance. So I just tripod up and just go, just try and lift it up at any means necessary. So but after doing incline press and all that kind of stuff, we move on to chest fly. In my personal opinion, by going from your bench press to incline press to fly, I think it's the kind of way chest growth really excels, because I've only found because this year's been very transformative for me, in terms of ways I work out, my whole mentality and everything. And I've just only just found that adding a press with a fly is kind of the way to increase chest volume, which I'm going quite heavy on chest flies, which you can probably see my legs moving around like I got Parkinson's or something. But there's no diss to people with Parkinson's, it's just descriptive measure. But my legs just going everywhere, and it's at least I'm training hard. That's all I can really say in this situation, because a lot of people I see in this gym, and I've seen previous gyms and, all this kind of stuff, they don't really train hard. They don't, push themselves, which, you know, is up to them. But if they're actually trying to get results, they need to be able to push themselves enough for their body to go, oh, I need to adapt, which is the whole reason for training. But, certain people just don't have it in them, hence why they stay at the level they are. Because, yes, genetics do come into play when it comes to, muscle size, muscle shape and everything kind of like that. But it all comes down to effort, really, because I don't have the best genetics in the world. I will simply put it out there, I do not have the best genetics in the world, but it's my passion and drive that has really got to me to the point where I'm at now. Like, I'm 20 years old. I'm sounding like an uncle right now, but simply, I have pushed myself for 3.5 consecutive years in like hypertrophy and strength training, and this is how far I've got. There's people that would do it for 3.5 years and get way better results or way worse results. Hence why I'm so grateful for, my, body, really, because there are people out here that, kind of have the genetics but don't have the drive, and some that don't have genetics but have drive. It's kind of like that. But training shoulders, I've got a very good set of shoulders. It's just like, the rest of me needs to catch up. But it's definitely getting to that stage where it is starting to catch up. And, my quads are growing, my lower arms are growing. It's pretty good, very, stimulating. But you see these two on the side, they just need to lock in. These two lads that I know, they just need to lock in a bit more, because both of them don't have structure in their workouts, meaning the whole progressive overload and everything like that is just not going to work. Hence why, if you genuinely want to change your overall appearance, your strength and everything, you need a program in order to calculate it and proceed. It's all part of setting a plan up. But anyway, without a plan, I wouldn't be able to have got my triceps as big as they have, which I know in grand scheme of it, not big, but they used to be non-existent. But when I've added a program, they've just blown up in terms of the size they used to be. So at least I have that kind of dedication to my craft almost, because of course I keep showing the similar workout pattern, but this is because it works. In this entire workout, part 1 to part 2, I've been repeating it for ages, and that's just because it works. Now, if something doesn't work, of course I change it, which I think if you've watched me long enough, you'd have seen at least 5 or more changes. And that just comes with trying to adapt to what I really want, which is I wanted to get big triceps here, so I'm doing a cross-body tricep extension, and then moving into push downs, which I only do 2 sets. One of those sets being a drop set, just to finish off the muscle. And I find that works for me at the moment. Down the line it may not work, because your body gets used to stuff, and these stacks are clearly not heavy enough, so it might just be a case of I have to think of something else. But in the meantime, this is the most effective I've been in a long time. It's just like, timings and everything, because my work is a 0 hour job, which, of course, if you are training and you do not know when you're in work or you're out of work, it's kind of like, confusing. And, sometimes you have morning shifts, sometimes you have afternoon shifts, and it's all over the place. But hopefully in the very near future, I'll be able to have more of a stable, set, like, job hours kind of thing. So, but I still try my best, even though, it may be absolutely warm as shit in this gym, which is another thing which you'll see in a minute, what happened during pull day. But first, we got flexing, shoulders looking pretty good, biceps looking good, overall structure, could use some work, but we're trying here. But anyway, on to pull day, which I'm doing 215 and then 180 kilos deadlift. So 3 reps and then 5 reps, 2 sets, which I filmed. I think I did 3, but I didn't film one of them, oddly enough. But in this certain situation, it was incredibly warm in this gym, to the point where the air was very hard to breathe. That's how bad the conditions in this gym were on this day. And even in the previous day, on the push day, it was quite hard to breathe. But when I'm doing deadlifts, I do really need oxygen. It's because deadlift is probably my worst lift, and in order to produce that much force and try and pull 215, it's kind of like pissing against the wind. But you'll see how sweaty and shitty my vest gets because of how warm it was. It was literally ridiculous, like kind of warm. It's like I was working out in a sauna. That's how bad it was. But we managed to get through it, me and a buddy of mine, this guy that you see, this fat bitch. I know he's watching right now. Yeah, you're a fat bitch and you need to hit your cardio, mate. But doing lat pull downs first, just to activate the lower lats, because of course we need to focus on those because of my certain insertions. They're very high, so trying to build and thicken the lower lats is kind of like priority number 1. But also, similar to a incline press to a cable fly, I do a lat pullover just to get not only stimulate the lower lats but stimulate the upper lats, so it just gives it that different kind of stimulus to adapt to. But we are training absolutely hard as shit here, trying to stimulate a response from the body to build more muscle and everything, because yes, I am going into a powerlifting competition, but I do like building muscle. It's oddly an addiction at this point. But hopefully I get so much muscle in a theoretical good world that I go up to 105 and I compete at 105 and I'm actually competitive. But at this instance, I don't think I'm anywhere near being competitive for 105, because they're all tanks and they're basically leagues stronger than me. Like, we're talking 325 deadlift already. So I just can't compete with that at the moment. But like I was saying, lat pullovers to I was absolutely struggling, as you can probably tell, to even
pull the weight and, you know, try and do anything, just purely because of how warm and, you know, humid it was in this gym. I don't even know how to explain it. If you've been in a steam room before, it's kind of like that, but obviously you don't have the steam going into your lungs, you just have the humidity, really, and it was horrible. I feel like this was way more torturous than any kind of cardio, you know, leg day I've ever experienced in my life. And this is a back and bicep and forearm day, which is usually one of my favorites. And, you know, it's turns out to be the sweatiest and most grim workout I've ever had. Because it wasn't even warm this day, oddly enough. It was 10 degrees outside. And the inside of this goddamn gym was probably exceeding 25. And it was humid. So it was absolutely disgusting. Like, even doing rows, you can see in my face, it's just so much effort to even, you know, try. But once we got to the friggin', you know, preach curl, it kind of like got better, because although it kind of did get worse because I just felt weak. You know, it's like almost like all the water in my body just like got swept out of me, which probably it did because of how warm it was. And, you know, it's just like sweaty as hell and grim, really. I don't even think my MMA gym is this, like, you know, moist. Like, genuinely, that thing has like condensation on the windows, and sometimes, very, very few times, mist. But in here, it just was like, ugh, disgusting. But this does go back to, you know, my point of, you know, I still train hard even though I feel like shit, because I definitely felt like shit on this day. Bless me. But yeah, I felt like dog shit and just terrible. Loads of dust around me, but anyway, essentially, even though I felt like shit, I still trained as hard and, you know, try and push myself, of course. But yeah, it's all I can really do for the time being. Meanwhile, the, you know, AC unit was getting fixed, which it's fixed now. So after this day, it was fixed. So I was very happy that I didn't have to go through another torturous session like that ever again. I mean, it probably will break it again, but I will put this up with like one of the hardest workouts I've ever done in my life. You know, I've done some extremely hard workouts, like leg day. The first time I designed my leg day was torturous. I couldn't feel my legs for, you know, weeks, and, you know, it was so sweaty and everything. But this genuinely takes the cake, you know, on how, like, you know, exhausting and just it was. But keeping up with biceps, you know, doing incline bicep curls, you know, and kind of hammer curls, you know. Once the biceps fully fatigued, you know, going with hammer curls just enables to get a few more reps out, just purely because you're adding in, you know, the brachialis muscle, which I will be doing like brachialis curl things here, because my mate that I was training with was saying, oh, we can do this, you know, it feels way better. And, you know, I agree, you know, it feels way better, and that's what I'm probably going to do on my pull day this, you know, week, which I have 2 pull days. I'm just going to do it again. But Off camera, I did some like wrist rotation things, so to like thicken up my wrists, because everyone flames me for my forearms. So I'm just trying to find different ways to actually build my forearms instead of accepting defeat. But anyway, that's practically all I've done for the first part of week 3. And yeah, I'll see you in the second part of week 3 and everything. So enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
There we go. Start. Hopefully, when I get my level 2 and everything, I will move to JD or something. Oh, you're still doing the personal training? Yeah, it's took me a while because I've been busy and everything, haven't I? So, is it online?